the nature of our relationship was such that if there was any way that someone who's passed away could send a sign to the person that they loved, I know he would do it. So that was behind everything. And I'd heard about signs before, but I didn't really know what it meant. And I'd never had a great loss. I mean, I'd lost my grandparents, but I didn't even live in the same country as them, so I didn't spend that much time with them. So I knew there were a few people in my orbit who had lost someone, and they did talk about signs. So at first, I found myself almost trying too hard and being really desperate to see a sign, and then, like looking at a pile of rocks or something and trying to make some meaning out of it, and it just wasn't happening. And then occasionally people would say that, something had occurred to them and they thought it might be a sign for me, but it didn't feel right for me. The only thing that did keep happening straight away that I noticed was I was living in between London and the countryside. And in both houses, every time I went to the window, there was a robin in the garden. Literally more than I've ever seen before and since. I mean, last year I actually hadn't seen one for a while and saw one on his birthday. And it was across the road. And I walked across, I got quite close to it and it didn't fly away. So that's definitely been a theme for me. And there's actually, I didn't know this, but there's actually a phrase that is robins appear when loved ones are near. And I think that appeals to a lot of people. I've received some robin stories from other people as well. But obviously it holds special significance to me because of his name. And then I did also once actually see him standing next to my bed about 6 weeks after he passed away. I was actually woken up by a thump to the shoulder, and then I sort of saw a hazy outline, and then I could actually sense the effort that he was putting through to become more visible. And it got to the point where I could see the outline of his hair and his features, and then he just dissolved from the top down. And at the time, so this was almost 4 years ago, I Googled, and when I woke up in the morning, I Googled, is it possible to see a deceased loved one? And Google said something like 60% of older people can have visual hallucinations when they're in grief. And even though I was in acute grief at the time, that neuroscientist part of me just thought, that's actually really sad that something that felt so profound would be reduced to this explanation. And it kind of bothered me a bit. I had a neighbour who I knew had had a loss 5 years previously. We'd never really talked about it. But because I was searching so much, I asked him if he thought it was possible to see or, sense or communicate with someone who we'd lost. And he got quite agitated and said, absolutely not. And said, because if that was true, then everybody would be talking about it. And again, I thought, that can't be the reason that it's not true, just because everybody's not talking about it. And obviously, as I opened up this conversation with people I knew, pretty much everyone had some sort of experience of sensing the presence of a lost loved one, or, lights flashing on and off unexpectedly and things like this. And then at some point, I can't remember exactly when, but over a year after he passed away, it wasn't over a year because it started around the first anniversary. I kept getting either repeated numbers, like angel numbers, or his birthday, 2109. I always seeing it on my phone. On the significant anniversaries, I would get numbers that were related to that anniversary. And it was just one day a light bulb went off in my head, because he was in finance. He wrote a globally well-known technical analysis report, and he was obsessed with the Fibonacci sequence. It was a bit of a joke in our household. And I suddenly thought it would make sense to me that he would communicate with me through numbers. People say song lyrics and all sorts of other things, but that really made sense to me. And that's when I started actively asking to receive certain numbers. And over time, I would say by the 2.5 year point, this became so specific, so quick, so exact. And equally, I could ask him a question in my head, and I would receive an answer that it didn't, the only way I can explain it is it didn't feel like my own thought, and it didn't feel like something I would say, and it definitely feels to me like it's him.
Do you believe that these things that you're perceiving as signs, or many people perceive as signs, are literally being quote unquote sent to you, or that you're just becoming aware of them?
My personal experience is that they're being sent to me from Robin. And I've generalized them to calling them signs from beyond. And I think that could mean different things to different people, and that's okay. A lot of people obviously will think that these are from God or angels. Some will say the universal source. My particular interest is whether it's possible that they're from people who've passed on. So actually, a couple of months after Robin died, my father passed away as well. But in terms of like day-to-day presence, obviously Robin was the sort of, gaping loss in my life. And I was very focused on communicating with him. But once I felt that I could do that, I wanted to see if I could do it with other people. So I had said on a previous podcast that I had wanted to be an actress. And when I was in high school, and my teacher said that I was really talented and I should go to Oxford and read English and then go to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, I came rushing home to tell my father, and he said, "Over my dead body." So that never happened. I went to medical school. And then it suddenly occurred to me that as he's passed away, maybe now I do have permission. And so I asked him, I wrote in my journal, if I have your permission to pursue acting, then let me bump into a famous actress. Now, I live in London, not LA, so that doesn't happen often. And I'm the trustee of a charity called the Lady Garden Foundation for Gynecological Cancers, and I was on the Christmas Carol concert committee that year. So I invited a friend to meet me at the church, and we just got there, so we were standing in the entrance, and then a woman went to walk past us, so I moved to the side to step out of her way, but she moved to the same side and we physically bumped into each other. And then she said, sorry, and she walked on. And the friend I was with is a filmmaker. And I said, oh my goodness, that was Anna Friel. I love her. I particularly like her because she played a psychotic character in the series in the UK. And as a psychiatrist, I just thought she was brilliant at it. So the next day I sent her a DM saying, thank you for doing a reading for the charity that I'm a trustee of. I'm the person you bumped into when you entered the church. Didn't hear anything for 4 days and thought, she's just too famous. She's never going to reply to me. And then got a message back from her saying, the day after the concert, my brother, who's a doctor, sent me a link to watch something on YouTube. And when that ended, you came up on a podcast and I watched it. And I've been telling everyone I've met all week how brilliant you are. And I said, what, you watched that podcast before you saw my message? And she said, I promise, I've only just seen your message now and I've been talking about you all week. And you want to act and I can help you with that. So all of that happened, but I had completely forgotten what I'd written in my journal. So I went to write in my journal. And I think, I'm a big advocate for reading over entries to kind of like reinforce, to see patterns that may be repeating. And even though I really believe in signs and it's how I live my life now, it took my breath away when I saw that entry and realised that I had asked for that sign and it had literally, when I told my friend about it, she said, well, I was there, so I saw that you physically bumped into her, not just, met her kind of thing. So I've got so many other stories like that as well.